Good day, class. Welcome to our Module 3 discussion, the self from Anthropological Perspective. At the end of this module, you will be able to explain how culture affects, shape one's identity, examine your sense of self through the different I positions and the three fundamental selves. Reflect on your own identity struggles by writing an essay. Class, if we say anthropological, from the root word anthropology, which means the study of human societies and cultures and their development. Next, it is the study of human biological and physiological characteristics and their evolution, according to Oxford Languages. Next, the simplest meaning of anthropology is it is the study of what makes us human. So class, let us define what is Filipino. Filipino is defined as belonging or relating to the Philippines, of course, or to its people and culture. So it refers to the people and our culture as Filipinos. Next, in the context of citizenship, Filipino simply means membership in a nation state. So we are a member in this nation. Okay, in the Constitution, a citizen is someone who legally resides in a country. So those who are legally resides in the Philippines are called Filipino. Okay, so anthropologically, it entails a responsibility to live and protect the country's cherished values. So therefore, in order to be called Filipino, you have to belong to the Filipino people and adapt their culture. In this perspective, the self must be embedded in the culture. Next is the cultural identity and national identity. So let us define what is culture. Culture is derived from the Latin word cultura or cultus, meaning care or cultivation. Culture is analogous to caring for an infant. So, like for example, an infant has prolonged dependency doon sa kanyang parents, especially the mother. He or she has to be taken care of by the people around him or her, specifically yung mga parents. So the infant has to learn from them so he or she can better adjust while growing up in his or her immediate culture environment, according to Liano and Corpus 2008. Next is the definition of identity. It refers to who the person is, kung sino ka, or it is the qualities and traits of an individual that make him or her different from others. Okay, so also refers to how a person sees and express oneself. So to enlighten, we have here the example identifying people in a geographical context or based on where they come from. So base sa kung saan ka galing, ano? So that's the identity. Next example, people from the west, okay, are different from the people from the east because they are located in opposite sides of the world. Of course, iba din yung sa atin because we are the Philippines is a part of Asia. So, iba din yung ating identity dito, iba din yung ating culture. So, that's identity. Refers to who the person is. Depends on geographical context or based on where they come from. Next is the cultural identity. It refers to the identity or feeling of belongingness to a certain culture group. Okay, we take note of the word feeling of belongingness. You belong to a certain culture group. So that is cultural identity. It is an individual's perception about himself. Kung ano yung pagtingin mo sa iyong sarili or herself. Anchored on race, sa lahi mo, sa gender mo, sa nationality mo, sa religion mo, sa iyong ethnicity and language. So that is cultural identity. For example, one might identify himself or herself as Filipino because he or she embodies Filipino cultural ways. Kasi nasa sayo yung we practice kung ano yung mga culture natin. So, and traditions, our traditions as Filipinos, to which he or she has been exposed while growing up. Habang lumalaki ka, na-expose ka sa Filipino culture and traditions. So that is cultural identity. While being a Filipino, one may also identify as a Catholic, okay? Because it is his or her religious background. So that is cultural identity. Next is the cultural identity theory. So it explains why a person acts and behaves the way he or she does. For example, is yung greetings in some part of Asia like Korea, no, ang way of greetings nila is nagbabow down sila. Sa atin hindi. So that is cultural identity theory. So it makes sense of how an individual is influenced by the cultural context or context he or she is situated in. Okay? A single person can possess multiple identities, simultaneously making him or her part of many cultural groups. Kasi we can adapt many cultures. Okay? So these identities overlap and form the identity of an individual. Next is the national identity. So let us define what is nation. A nation is a group of people built on the premise of shared customs, traditions, religion, language, art, history, and more. So, nation ba ang Pilipinas? Yes, because we are a group of people. We are built on the same shared customs, traditions. May religion, may language. We have the Filipino language, art, history, traditions, cultures, diba? So, next, it refers to the identity or feeling of belongingness to one state or nation. According to Robert Emerson, it is a body of people who feel that they are a nation. It is a body of people, okay? So, national identity is social constructed. It is influenced and shaped by material and non-material cultures. So we have here material and non-material culture. If we say material culture, ito yung mga bagay na nahawakan. Okay, such as the national flag, emblem, or seal is representative of all the people who are part of a nation. So these are tangible things if we say material culture. Sa non-material culture naman, it embodies the shared understanding of a group of people which include norms, beliefs, and traditions. So, these are intangible things if we say non-material culture. We have here Brian Morris, Anthropology of the Self. According to Brian, the self is not an entity, but ito ay isang proseso that orchestrates yung mismong individual's personal experience. That's the anthropological perspective of Brian Morris. The concept of self for Brian is defined as an individual's mental representation of his or her person as a kind of self-representation. Next anthropological perspective is dialogical self, which is introduced by Hubert Hermans in 1992. Sinabi niya, the theory regarded self as the society of mind. So, the self is considered as extended to significant others in the environment that populate the self as a dynamic multiplicity of I positions in which dialogical or monological relationships may emerge. So in this theory class, an individual's sense of self is established through how one identifies himself or herself. Kung paano mo i-identify yung sarili mo with the different positions you hold, okay, internally or externally. So we have here the example of dialogical self. Again, if we say I position is internal. The example here is I as educator, I as hardworking, or I as student, I as looking for contentment, which are positions that can be in sync all together. Again, the I position is functional. It is internal. It refers to how one functions. Kung paano ka nagpa-function. For example, I as a student. So, you're a student. That is your position. Then, how you function as a student. Next is the external I position. It refers on how one identifies himself. Ano? You identify. It refers to kung paano mo i-identify yourself based on particular external position. We have here the examples. Internal I as empathic, I as diligent. Okay? Then the external I as brother, I as part of an organization. So all these constitute the functionality of the self. Next, we have here the individual self, relational self, and collective self. So, individual self reflects the cognitions related to traits, states, and behaviors that are stored in memory. For example, I am religious, I feel cold, I am ambidextrous. Okay? Next is the relational self reflects cognitions that are related to one's relationships. For example, I am the father, I am the godfather, or I am the son-in-law, okay, or I am the daughter. Next is collective self. Reflects cognitions that are related to one's group. Ito yung tumutukoy naman sa grupo na kinabibilangan mo. For example, I am an Ilocano, or I am a Pangasinense, I am a Filipino. So that is according to Zoom, Wu, Yang, and Gu 2016. Next is the identity struggles. This is a term introduced by Anthony Wallace and Raymond Pogelson. Characterizes the discrepancy between the identity a person claims to possess and the identity attributed to that person by others. May discrepancy kasi yan minsan, class. Ano? Yung identity that you claim to possess at yung identity attributed to that person by others. Kung ano yung kung ano yung perception na nakikita sa'yo ng ibang tao at yung perception mo mismo sa sarili mo. May discrepancy yan. Ano? Minsan. So, when an individual perceives that he or she is assigned a wrong impression, minsan nagkakaroon tayo ng wrong impression sa mismong sarili natin. Okay? He or she will probably always depend his or her identity. So, the best possible solution sa situation na ito is to talk to the person, kausapin mo yung tao and establish a mutual understanding regarding one's way of perceiving himself or herself, opposed to how he or she is perceived by others. Then, it has to be done as soon as possible in order to prevent future conflicts. The confrontation, however, must be done in a calm and respectful manner. For your activity class, pakifill in itong kanang column kung ano yung hinihingi. Like for example is yung gender, male or female, age, marital status, single or married, widow. Okay, sexual orientation nandito na. Isusulat mo dito sa kanan kung lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, heterosexual, etc. Skin color, black, brown, religion, Catholic or Islam. Next, citizenship. We have here Filipino, language, kung ano yung language mo. Okay. Regional identity, ano ka ba? Kapampangan, Ilocano, Pangasinense. Economic status, poor, middle class, rich. Isulat dito sa kanang column. Next, same din sa generation. Nandito na, Generation X, Millennial ka ba, Gen Z ka ba, isulat dito sa kanang column. Okay? Next is personality. We have here introvert, extrovert, ambivert. Saan ka sa tatlong yan? So, isulat dito sa kanang column. Next, you will write an essay about what it means to be Filipino. Okay? Next is, have you experienced identity struggles? How did you defend yourself? Nagkaroon ka na ba ng identity struggle before? Paano mo dinipensahan yung sarili mo on that wrong impression, okay, ng ibang tao sa'yo, for example. So, how did you defend yourself? So class, that ends our discussion for Module 3. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Thank you and God bless.